Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother trek through cinema on a quest to find the best film ever made. This season, we begin our journey by counting down the AFI top 100 films of all time, and we welcome you to this week's movie, Goodfellas.
We're just a couple of good fellas, you know?
Just a couple of guys, a couple of good fellas, So
He's a nice guy. He's one of us. He's a good fella.
Goodfellas is not a new movie for you, right?
No, I've seen this movie probably about 4 or 5 times.
This is one of
the few movies on the list I've probably seen before more than once.
I mean, it's Scorsese, right? Who is probably your favorite director at this point?
Most, 99% of Scorsese movies I've seen, I liked. I liked Silence. I like Goodfellas. I like Casino.
Taxi Driver.
Taxi Driver.
Shutter Island.
Wait, he did Taxi Driver?
Yes!
Oh, no, shit. Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah, you dumb motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's De Niro in it.
Of course, yeah. Taxi Driver I liked.
Wolf of
Shutter
Wall
Island
Street.
I liked. Wolf of Wall Street I liked. He does
The
good
Departed.
movies. Yeah, I like The Departed.
Honestly, we can just keep going on of great Scorsese movies, but we're talking about Goodfellas. People argue is his masterpiece. The only arguments people have are the other movies on this list, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, which are higher on the list.
I really like Taxi Driver, and I know why people really like Raging Bull, and I can understand it from those point of views, but personally I didn't enjoy watching it.
We'll wait till we get back.
Good.
Once we get back to it, I think you're going to have a new opinion, but we
should focus on the task at hand here. Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro, Ray Liotta, and Joe Pesci.
You have a problem remembering Ray Liotta's name.
Well, because this is the only movie I know that he shows up in, Martin Scorsese's filmography, and so I'm always sitting here being like, wait, that's not Robert De Niro. Well, then who the fuck is it? Wait, he's not one of the normal people that shows up in these Martin Scorsese movies.
Who is this guy?
I don't know this guy.
Very excited to talk about this one. So, I guess we'll get started. What the hell is this movie about?
It's about Ray Liotta's character,
Henry
Hill, and his life, basically.
His rise and fall through the Italian mob, how he goes from being this schmuck neighborhood kid to pretty much being the linchpin in probably one of the biggest mob-run drug cartel things in America.
Mm-hmm. And
then how, paranoia and a lot of coke kind of brings you down.
Yep.
That's usually the key to a lot of these stories. It's paranoia and cocaine really is the downfall for most of these gangsters.
His rise and his epic spiral, eventually becoming a rat flipping on the mob to save his neck.
It's really interesting because, I'm over here like, man, Henry, why'd you do it? And then I'm like, brother, fucking Dean, you would have ratted all these people out because you would have been dead if you didn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can, if we go, dive a little bit into that real quick, is your loyalty to them worth your life? Especially since they're the ones that are going to kill you?
That's the catch, right? Because you join this organization, you join basically this family, and you're, their family, their blood, or whatever.
And the only thing they really care about is loyalty.
Basically, loyalty and can you bring in money? Those are the only two things.
Yes.
And if you fuck up one of those, then that's when you're in trouble.
Even if you can't bring in money, they'll still keep you around. They won't shoot you because you can't bring in money. Loyalty, on the other hand.
They will shoot you for that.
They will definitely shoot you.
But yeah, so Goodfellas. Where do you want to get started with this one? You want to do stuff like the time it came out, its production, you just want to jump into the movie at hand?
We'll get all of because we'll have a lot to talk about the movie itself, so we might as well get all the fluff out of the way, all the box office, the awards,
the production,
all that, all the fluff,
all that fluff.
All the stuff that doesn't really matter.
All this research I do that's irrelevant.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. All right, so we'll get this out of the way. First off, this movie comes out in 1990. The biggest hits of that year are Ghost, Home Alone, Pretty Woman. Also, Dances with Wolves makes a bunch of money. Total Recall comes in, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Ghost is the movie with the pottery scene?
Yes, with Patrick Swayze and his beautiful hair.
Yes.
Yeah. And that year was also really good for this movie, Goodfellas, because it was nominated for 44 awards. It won 29 of them, which, if you go back and look at some of our other ones, this actually has a really good nomination to winning ratio. It might be the best one other than Ben-Hur.
Well, I mean, Ben-Hur.
You're right.
I mean, hey.
Right. But out of the 6 Oscars this was nominated for, only Joe Pesci won for Best Supporting Actor. This lost out to everything else to Dances with Wolves, which won Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, and Score. And nearly every other film scholar has agreed that this Oscar ceremony was probably one of the worst takes in Oscar history, where Goodfellas didn't win Best Picture.
Over Dances with Wolves.
Over Dances with Wolves.
To clarify, also, Dances with Wolves used to be on the list and was taken off.
Correct. Goodfellas has been on both the lists and outlasted Dances with Wolves.
Yes.
The other big thing about this movie is kind of its production, because the film is based on a true crime book called Wise Guys. Scorsese read it while he was making Color of Money. Fell in love with it because Scorsese basically grew up at a time and around these guys in New York.
Yeah.
If you ever look into Scorsese's past, he basically grew up in a mob neighborhood. And he reads the book, thinks it's fantastic, it's the most true-to-life mob book he's ever read, buys the rights, and he's going to make it, but funding comes in for Last Temptation of Christ, holds off on it, and then 88 comes around, and him and the writer of the book, Nicholas Pileggi, make the script. It goes through about 12 drafts until they can get De Niro to agree to the film. De Niro comes in, they greenlight the movie for $25 million, and they start making the movie on location in Queens, New York. But yeah, and the movie comes out, huge hit, makes double its budget back, makes about $50 million against the $25 million budget, and every critic after its release says it's the best gangster flick since The Godfather. It might even be better than The Godfather.
Oh, wow.
That's what people were saying. They said it's the greatest gangster film ever made. Its only challenger is The Godfather.
Okay, they might have had recency bias back in the day.
I'm going to say they had recency bias, but we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
But not only is this included on both the AFI list, it's also included on the Sight and Sound 2012 list of best films at its 48th spot, and the 2015 BBC American Film list at the number 20 spot. So with all that...
So BBC rates this as a better American movie?
Yes.
Than it is currently on the
AFI list, yeah. But
it's kind of funny.
Remember, both those lists are also many years after the list we're talking about.
They're more updated. They realize the grandeur here more.
Yeah, we'll get to its AFI spot later once we finish talking about the film. But yeah, that's kind of the context of Goodfellas. Huge critical hit, makes a lot of money.
Based on a true story.
Based on a true story, and kind of becomes the template for mob movies from that point after.
Updating the mob genre.
Really updates the mob genre, and also makes Scorsese a household name. Like, completely.
Yeah, I mean, Goodfellas is just... I mean, if you haven't seen Goodfellas, you gotta watch it. This is one of the movies that I can just recommend out the gate. I don't have any hang-ups about recommending the movie. It's just a good movie.
It's a fantastic movie.
It's just great.
This is not one of those... This is not one of those recordings where it's like, is this good? Is this not good? Oh, well, we'll talk about it for a little bit. We're just in agreement this is great.
Yeah,
right?
this movie's just great.
All right.
It's great. It's a good watch. It's, violent and deals with, drugs and sex. But, it's... Except for the violence, it's not too gratuitous with the other stuff. And usually people are more okay with watching violent movies than, sex movies.
Yeah, especially in, American cinema.
Yeah, so I would recommend this movie to just about anybody. Goodfellas is a good watch. It's a good movie.
I mean, the movie's almost, 3 hours long?
It's 2:30, I think.
It's 146 minutes. So yeah, okay. So it's about 2:30, 2:26.
Yeah,
and it flies by. It's so fast.
Yeah. It didn't fly by.
Are you sure? It was a pretty clean watch for me.
But for 2.5 hours, it's pretty good.
For me, it felt like it didn't have that extra 30 minutes because the opening and the end are cut so quickly and we're moving so fast.
Here's the thing. The movie doesn't feel like it's a quick 90 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely tell the movie's a little longer. It's just you don't really mind.
I mean, it's probably why this is, considered one of the best edited films of all time.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean,
makes sense.
We were talking about, French Connection last week, which was considered one of the best edited films of all time. This was on the same editing list. Yeah. Well,
makes sense. But anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes of this meat and potatoes.
Yes. Do you want to just talk about those?
We'll just
the trio.
Sure. I was gonna say let's start at the beginning. Well, we couldn't start at the beginning and talk about the trio and talk about them when they're setting them up as kids, right?
Yeah, because the opening sequence with the kid actor is way better than most younger actors have any right to be. I'm be real with you.
No, like, it's so good, actually. Like, both Joe Pesci's character when it's the young actor and for Ray Liotta's kid actor, it's both really good.
Yeah, I could see these guys
kids
growing up
into them, yeah.
I also don't know where they found that young Joe Pesci kid, because he also sounds like Joe Pesci.
They probably just he was probably just a kid off the street in Queens. You know, they started filming and they were like, oh, we need somebody to play young Joe Pesci. And so they were like, hey, yo, kid, get over here. And he's like, hey, what's up? You guys some wise guys or some shit? You know, he was probably some monstrous fucking kid for all I know.
Probably. I mean, that's the another weird
No, that
thing.
was just Joe Pesci's illegitimate child that they found in Queens. And Joe Pesci was like, holy shit. I haven't seen this kid since he was born.
Not to disperse the great name of Joe Pesci, but... He did hang around with the Four Seasons for a long time.
Joe Pesci gets around. I don't mean that in a sexual way. I mean, like, literally, like, he's in all these movies. He used to be, like, a legitimate wise guy when he was a kid. And, I mean, he's in, what is it called?
Jersey Boys.
Jersey Boys. Like, he has a character in Jersey Boys because he literally knew Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
He literally hung around with those guys, yeah. And he was, like, a theater actor and all this other stuff. Like, he has an amazing life. Yeah.
And he's a Academy Award winner.
He also has a rap career after this, but you know.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Yeah, that's the dark times. But yeah, so the movie starts with, you know, probably one of the greatest openings in any of the movies we watched so far.
Yeah, the three main characters driving down a dark highway, and there's a man locked in the trunk.
They're hearing some bumping in the back.
They open the trunk, and the man that they thought they killed, he's not dead.
And, you know...
So they killed the ever-living shit out of him.
Tommy busts out a butcher knife that's bigger than my head and just goes to town. Jimmy comes up, caps him like 4 times, and then Henry slams the door. And it's the freeze frame, and it's the zoom. And as far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. So...
And then it does the rags to riches, you know?
Yeah,
and
the use of music in this is so good.
Oh, the use of music is really good. But also his face kind of portrays like the whole theme of the movie going on where, you know, he did always want to become a gangster. He loves the life, but he also can't really take it.
It's the cost of the life.
It's the cost of life. Like the look on his face after they just murk this dude in his trunk. He's just like, yeah, we fucked up.
Oh,
he's like, this is bad.
Like, I want to go back to the club and drink and like rough guys up for cigarettes. Can we go back to doing that?
Can we just go back to doing that? Can we just go back to robbing backs of trucks, you know?
Where all the truckers are like totally into it and it's fine. But yeah, and it goes from that and we flashback all the way back to them as kids and we really get the story of Henry Hill and it's kind of built up in this like childlike fantasy of these gangsters being like fucking superheroes.
I like how in the beginning of this movie, basically the movie has like this kind of gradient. So at the beginning of the movie, it's like the old mob where it's like, you know, everything's like shrouded in mystery and ooh, it's so like awesome to be a mob member and, you know, you have all these perks and there's no real downside. I mean, everybody's kind of in on it, you know?
Yeah.
Where it kind of shows them in this, like, great light.
Cops, and then it's showing them as, like, these are, you know, they're just these working guys that made it, right?
Yeah, and they're just, you know, they're the, he describes, you know, like, the protection services, you know, and he's like, oh, yeah, they're the cops for people that can't go to the cops, you know? And he's describing them in all these, like, great and wonderful ways. And then the movie, like, gradients to where, like, it goes from, well, they're not perfect, to, well, actually, they're all kind of scumbags.
And then it's like, they're not just scumbags, they're fucking monsters.
Yes. And I think it's a great, like, way to look at the movie to where, you know, the disillusionment of Henry Hill throughout the whole thing.
I mean, and this is a story as old as time, right? Because this is the gangster... Basically, the gangster archetype from, like, old Hollywood. The Rise and Fall. Public Enemy did this where, it's this, like, you know, street kid gets into the gang, gets the rise up, and then, you know, the eventual fall because, these guys get their comeuppance, right?
Yeah.
But this does it in, like, this really nice and fresh way. Even though it's, like, a very prototypical gangster story, it has all this, like, fresh paint on it, and it really gets into the fact that this kid really believed these mobsters were good fellas.
Yeah, they're good people, you know? I know these people, they're good people. Good fellas. He really believed that, you know, if he needed anything, he could go to Paulie, you know. If he needed something done, you know, Jimmy and Tommy, they could help him out. You know, he really believed these things. He believed, like, Tootie was always there for him, you know. He could always come and talk to these people, you know. If he needed a problem done, he could go to them. But it's not really how it is.
Not at all. And we kind of figured this out once we see Henry kind of get caught for the first time. Well, actually, when he gets caught for the first time,
when he's a kid, right? And they all come in to like congratulate him because he didn't rat, you know?
Yeah, and Jimmy gives him the whole thing. He's like, "This is the key. Never rat on your friends and don't say shit." And you did that, and they're all like happy. It's like a graduation party. It's
actually like it's such a funny scene in the movie. I love that scene because it's like the entire freaking mob gathered in the courthouse to congratulate this kid on getting pinched and not saying anything.
And I'm like, that was the turning point for Henry Hill's life. If he said something right there, he would have been over.
It would have been over.
He would have just never been a gangster. He would have probably grown up to be a schmuck, whatever. That was it. He's like, he knew the game and he knew what to play. And that's so different than every other time he gets arrested, right? It almost like it gets worse and worse as it goes on.
Oh, yeah. Of course it gets worse and worse.
Yeah.
When he gets pinched again for the beating up the guy in Florida, Paulie has to turn his back to him because, he's like, oh, I'm on probation. I don't know if I can help you. This and that and the other thing. And he kind of gets left out in the cold, him and his wife, which is, they're already having tons of problems by now. That's a whole nother part of the movie where they start out nice and then he gets a girlfriend and then he gets a different girlfriend who also cuts his coke, and
it's thing
all
where
these other things.
It's showing how poisonous this life is. Where it's like, it's so nice and wonderful and you get all the perks, but it's so fucking poisonous.
Well, also, he got greedy.
Never get greedy, never never use your own.
Never use your own, don't get greedy. I think it was when his wife is doing the voiceover, and she's talking about how like, it really feels nice to have a guy that'll stick his neck out just to get you the little extras. And it shows their like closets as she's doing the voiceover, and he's got like 40 fucking suits and she's got like 30 coats.
All the dresses you can ever imagine.
All the dresses you could ever need, all the shoes, all the watches and belts or whatnot.
And then you're like, a little extra?
A little extra. This is a lot. They live in large.
Yeah.
Especially after the Pittsburgh deal or whatever, where they get the new house.
Oh, yeah, where he does the deal for all, like, that coke money.
Yes.
I know we're jumping, like, way deep into the movie, but it was,
these themes of Henry Hill's, like, greed getting to him, and then, like, not just him, it also gets to, like, Jimmy, and then it's, like, Tommy has his own different problems with, like, his rage, his anger.
Yeah, that's the thing that all three of these characters exemplify something different about, like, how poisonous the life is and how it brings out the worst in them. For Henry, it's the greed. He's just so greedy. He just wants more and more and more. Jimmy, it's like that paranoia. He will kill people.
Anybody's gonna talk about what he's done. About the what was the job called?
The Latanza Heist.
The Latanza Heist. Talking, having to like whack like 20 different people just to make sure nobody could ever talk about him except for just these two people.
And then you have Tommy, Joe Pesci's character, who's just rage. All this power gives him
unadulterated rage.
All this power gives him the reason to just kill people and like not have to worry about it. And that eventually is his downfall because he kills like the wrong guy.
Person. He kills Bats. Bats was a made man. He can't do that.
Can't do that. It is interesting because these guys are based on real people.
Yeah.
And more or less, it's a pretty accurate portrayal of those real people. Granted, all these actors are strictly older than any of these guys at the time. Because, what is it? Joe Pesci, I think when he did this movie, he was in his 40s. And Tommy never lived to be past 26.
I see.
Yeah. Also, the real Tommy wasn't, this very small, spitfire of a dude. The real Tommy, Thomas DeSimone, he was like 6'4" and was like 260. He was
he's
big
a
motherfucker.
Angry guy.
But that's a whole other thing. That's going to get into another section where we talk about this versus the reality, because it's both oddly overly accurate and oddly not accurate in ways, and it's a very interesting
it's
duality.
Also a story about a guy who's in witness protection, so I don't know.
He wasn't in witness protection when this movie happened.
Oh, really?
He used to call into Howard Stern like every other week or something like that and just talk shit.
The hell?
Yeah, Henry Hill got busted for methamphetamine possession, I believe, a couple years before this movie got started.
Yeah.
And that's when, he had to come out of witness protection because he got pinched and he left witness protection. And he lived long enough, and he, went on a whole talk show circuit talking about the mob life, and basically all the people who wanted him dead were either in prison or dead themselves.
Well, he became like a public figure.
Pretty much. That happens to a couple of mob guys if you go on YouTube. There's like one guy who's a mob boss, or a former mob boss who did his time, and he just talks about
his name's like Francesi or something like that.
Something like that. He's very interesting story, but that's kind of what Henry Hill turned in, except Henry Hill was much sadder.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get into that. But back to the movie. Because where we left off with Henry, he grows up, he is now fully in the mob life.
Yeah.
And
he's one of the guys. He hangs around the cab stand, you know, like, his real transformation when he's a kid isn't necessarily, like, when he gets pinched, but also when he, like, burns up a lot of cars, too.
Yeah.
Because that's, like, his first, like, big job, you know?
It's the first thing that he does where I'm like, that's legitimately harmful and very illegal.
Yes.
Like, he's selling cigarettes, yeah, but that's, like, not...
He's selling cigarettes that he stole from a truck where the person driving the truck was like, man, whatever, just take him. And that's, like, the evolution of the crimes that he's committing and him kind of going from this innocent kid to being a criminal. Yeah.
And, you know, he comes as an adult. We find out he steals from the airport all the time. Him and Tommy do this. Jimmy runs the whole operation. He meets Karen, who is his wife, and then we have that whole thing.
Oh, the whole thing with how Karen gets involved. When they first meet, and Henry has, like, a thing he has to go to, you know, he's got a...
He's meeting Tully at 11.
He's meeting Tully at 11. He's got to go, you know. And he basically, like, totally blows her off for that date where Joe Pesci's trying to get into this quote-unquote Jewish broad's pants.
Yes.
And they have, like, the follow-up date where he doesn't even show at all. And then Joe Pesci's character drives Karen to the cab stand to go meet with him, to go tell him what she thinks. And it's such a great scene. Now she just, like, blows up at him, and he's like, oh, hey. I didn't know you were like this.
He's just like... I remember his words. He's like, yeah, she came out and she was yelling loud, but she had these eyes that look like Liz Taylor. She was kind of hot.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, that is the most
she looked kinda good.
That's the most dude bro reaction to a situation like that, right? Woman comes out of the car, starts yelling at you, fucking throwing down, and all going through your head is like, man, she looked kind of fine, though.
He's like, oh, whoa, hey, I didn't see this before.
What's going on? What's your name? What's your number? Where are you coming from? Where you going?
And so they kind of, like, hit it off after that, and, you know, they get eventually married and whatnot, but they have kind of, like, this really toxic relationship.
Yeah, which
mostly has to revolve around Henry Hill's kind of toxic living status, you know?
Will fuck anything that moves.
Somehow he still needs a girlfriend, even though Karen's around, and he has kids with Karen.
I mean, that's the thing with, what is it, every guy in this movie has a girlfriend?
Yeah, they all have a girlfriend in addition to their wives. It's just a thing, you know? It's one of these things about the life where they kind of just go along with it, even though it's completely unnecessary. But it's just what you do as a gangster, you know? You've got the wife, you got a girlfriend, you know, you got all these side gigs.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It's part of the life.
And that leads to a whole other debacle. But we move on with the story. So Henry gets pinched for beating up a guy in Miami whose sister worked for the FBI. And he goes to jail, and we get the prison scene.
Yes.
Which is fantastic, where they're cooking.
Yeah, where they're cooking, where they're like, you know, prison for us was a little different from everybody else. We had our own place, you know, we had lobsters delivered to us.
You know the crazy thing?
What?
Martin Scorsese, he did research for that and was, like, talking to people, was like, there's no way this is real. There's no way that's real. And apparently all the guards and stuff were reading it and, like, saw the scene, and they're like, actually, no, you kind of played it down. They had like a radio and everything going on. They had records. It was also like a way nicer room than this. And Martin Scorsese's like, wait a minute, what?
He's like, well, I mean, we got paid, didn't we?
That's a crazy thing, because I'm like, that's another thing.
Reach of the mob, you know?
That was how. I don't think people understand how
take
deep
the payment. That's all that mattered.
I don't understand if people know how deep rooted the power of the mafia was during the time this movie's taking place, from about 1950 through to about 1980.
Yeah.
They were borderline a government agency for a hot minute.
Whoa, are we calling the CIA a mafia organization?
That's
a whole other thing.
Whole other thing. But that was like a legitimate thing. Like back in like the 60s and stuff, mafia was borderline a government agency. They had like a lot of pull. They had a lot of politicians in their pockets. They were able to get a lot of things passed, made. They were almost a political body.
I mean, I'm sure in some neighborhoods, like the New York area, that they were probably a joint operation with the cops.
Yeah. It wasn't until I think Rudy Giuliani basically sued the shit out of so many mobsters and made it so expensive for them to run, and also put a shit ton of them in prison, that the mob finally, like, you know, whittled down a little bit. I mean, in California, where we are, there wasn't a mob presence because Hollywood was too corrupt for the mafia.
It's too corrupt for the mafia.
That's a serious thing. That's why all the mafia guys basically stopped in Nevada and they never moved into Hollywood. Because by the time they got here, they're like, the studio paid everybody off already. The only person we get a meeting with was the fucking janitors.
It's the way it goes, you know.
It's the way it goes, man. It's the way it goes. But as the story goes on, so Henry gets pinched. In prison, he gets the contact with the people in Pittsburgh to run all this cocaine, and that's where he gets hooked up with all these druggies, and starts going down.
That's where it really starts going downhill, is when he betrays Polly. Polly told him, never go near the garbage. You know, this is kind of like a theme that always shows up in mob movies, where it's in this, like, time period where it's, like, you know, the revolution of, like, you know, drugs and whatnot, is where all the mobsters are always like, don't touch the drugs. Don't go near them.
Even The Godfather,
yeah.
You know, I'm going to reference a movie way farther down the list, but it's The Godfather. When Marlon Brando's character, Don Corleone, is talking to, like, Sonny, because Sonny's really hot for this, like, heroin deal, he's like, no, we don't touch drugs. Gambling, political people, you know, cigarettes, those are, like, vices. Those are fine. Prostitution, fine. But drugs, that shit's dangerous. Anybody who gets hooked on smack, those people are compromised.
Yes.
If you get hooked on, like, boozing, women, smokes, or gambling, you can usually beat them back in the line. But it's hard to beat, you know, a heroin monkey off your back.
Yeah, because, you know, these people are more, you know, dangerous, more erratic. You know, you could just get shot over a drug deal, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Selling a guy, like, a case of booze outside some place, you know, it's not nearly as dangerous as handing the guy a key of coke.
Yeah.
You know, he's liable to shoot you over it.
I mean, Henry almost gets killed later on in the movie by basically everyone in his life, but
yes.
Well, we're getting to that. We're getting to that because Henry gets out. He starts selling all this coke. He gets real large,
big,
real fucking big.
I mean, they have the whole remodel, or like the new house with the move away wall.
Which that house, I know it is like 1970s tack, but I want that living room. That is the epitome of drug dealer living.
Kino.
Kino.
Kino
the rock
drug
wall,
dealer
the like shitty leopard print like wallpaper. It looks like something you would only think is good if you were high on cocaine.
Yes, it's only something like that like overly bougie, you know, just like no normal person would care about these things, but they just have all this fucking money. The only thing they see,
the white leather couch.
Yes, you know, where it's just they only want these things because they're expensive.
I feel that's the real problem of these you know drug guys is like it's like it looks so cool in the catalog. Why did you need a Bengal tiger as a pet? Because it looked good in the catalog.
I mean, it's cool, isn't it? Well, no, it's not fucking cool.
It ate the toddler.
Yes, exactly. These people don't realize these things.
And around this time, this is when Jimmy finally gets, you know, a little itchy around the ears, right? Because that's about when he starts killing all these people in his life.
It's soon afterwards where they have the
Latanza Heist?
The Latanza Heist, and that's where Jimmy, you know, because Jimmy's like semi-involved at this point with the drugs, but the Latanza Heist is where Jimmy gets his big amount of money. They get like $6 million or whatever.
It is the largest heist in U.S. history.
Yeah. They get the heist about $6 million, and Jimmy doesn't really want to pay any of these people their money for
and they
the
keep
job.
bugging him about
They keep bugging him about it. And he doesn't really want to pay them because if he pays them, they're gonna spend it, and if they spend the money, it's gonna look suspicious,
and it's gonna lead back to him.
Because
he's not sure if these guys will rat on him.
These guys might rat. You know, he's paranoid. He's the paranoid one of the bunch, and so you know what he does? He ties some loose ends.
Ties like 20 of them, right?
Ties like maybe it's less than 20, but like 12, like a dozen loose ends.
Like Baker's dozen loose ends.
I think in the movie he ties like seven loose ends.
7 loose ends.
It's nothing, you know.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine, you know.
Kill Samuel L. Jackson.
Oh, that's 8. I didn't even think about that one.
Dude, he kills Nick Fury.
He kills Nick Fury.
But yeah, so that's another thing, because I think at every moment of this movie, we get a moment where this equals their downfall.
Yes.
Right? Jimmy's paranoid when he's just like, fuck it, and just kills like all these people, orders the hits, gets them all done. That's his downfall. When Tommy kills Billy Bats, that's his downfall. Which happens like way
early.
Way early. About like probably the midpoint of the movie if we timed it.
No, it's probably earlier than that. It's probably only like a third through the movie.
Maybe it's like the end of the third act. I would have to go back and like rewatch it and like find the timestamp, but besides the point. And then with Henry, we get it as soon as he starts doing the Pittsburgh stuff, when he betrays Paulie.
Yes.
When he starts getting greedy. And
he was already greedy before that.
Yeah, but this is when he's just like,
he goes full in.
Fuck the family, I need money. And it kind of, as it goes, it spirals out. And Henry is selling to the Pittsburgh people, and then around this time he gets pinched because he starts using a shit ton of coke. And we have that great scene or sequence where it's edited throughout his whole day, the day leading up to him getting pinched, and he's being chased around by the helicopter. It's Ray Liotta maxed out on the cocaine you can ingest in a human body. And he's like, don't let the sauce sit, keep stirring the sauce. He's on the phone with everybody.
He's got his brother with him.
Yeah, his brother shows up. He shows up to the hospital. The doctor won't let him leave because he's like, dude, you're going to have a fucking heart attack. He's like, give me some Valium, I'm good. It's such a well-done
amazing sequence. He's got to take the guns to Jimmy because Jimmy wants to fit him to some silencers that don't fit. So he's like, okay, I gotta go to your mother's. I gotta go to
Karen's
mom's house to drop off the guns. Wait until the helicopter leaves. The helicopter leaves, takes the guns, goes to the guy that has the coke, just pawns off the guns to the guy that has the coke, gets the coke, goes back home. He has like an hour to try and prepare a little bit of dinner. Has to leave again to go get the coke cut. Gets the coke cut. Comes back.
The mule is like, I won't leave without my fucking hat. And then he's like,
while he's at the place where he picks up the coke, he calls the house being like, hey, mule lady, like, don't use the inside phone. Go find another phone to fucking call for the drop, like, don't use the phone inside. He hangs up.
5 minutes later, picks up that fucking home.
She picks up the home phone and is like, hey, the drop's gonna be here. Here's the fucking, like...
Here's the number. This is my social.
Yeah,
here's my birth certificate.
He just says everything straight into the bug on the house. He finally gets home. She needs her hat, so he's like, fuck, fine, I gotta go get the hat. As they're pulling out of the driveway, they get busted by the cops.
And I love that, right? When we get the voiceover and it's Henry saying, I knew it was the cops because I heard them. If it was anybody else, I wouldn't have heard anything. I just would have been dead. Oh, it chills,
It's
dude.
true.
It's so true. And I think about it because we've seen how many wise guys get whacked in the movie up to this point. Like a lot of them.
4 or 5.
And it's usually preceded by, really like pleasant conversation, get in the car, dead.
Yeah.
Or it's like, what's going on? Hey, look at that. Boom, dead. Or it's like, oh, they're eating, boom, dead.
Or, they say something, they try and bust somebody's balls. Boom, dead.
Yeah. Tommy keeps shooting people.
Yes.
Basically. And they pick up Henry. They give him the whole spiel. They put him in jail. He gets out on bail and then, tries to figure out what to do. He's going to go undercover, just ditch town, bail out. But Karen is like, yeah, I flushed all the drugs. And he's like, why the fuck did you do that?
Like, we don't have any fucking money. That was all the money.
And she's like, they were going to find
it. He's like, they weren't going to find shit.
Also, by the way, they would have found that shit.
They would have fucking found it. He was losing it.
Yeah. Also, where he's looking is like behind his like bedroom TV. They were gonna find it.
Bitch, they would have found it. You'd have to put the fucker in the TV.
Maybe not even in the TV, because they might have cracked open the TV.
Well, but the TV didn't look cracked open at that point.
Bro, let's be honest. If they're in there and they're just like, we're getting this motherfucker, they're cracking that TV.
Well, they already had him.
Fine, they're cracking that TV, dog. But they get Henry. Henry goes to Paulie and just is like trying to smooth shit over.
He's like, hey, could you help me out somehow? I know I really fucked up. And Paulie's like, here's $3,200. Get the fuck out of my face.
He's like, I never want to see you again. I probably won't whack you.
It's not that like overt. He just says, I'll turn my back on you, which is how a lot of like the conversations go in this movie, is that like the guys that have been in the mob for a while will say a few things and they mean a lot.
Yeah.
Paulie says, I'll have to turn my back on you. And he's fucking dead.
Yeah.
You know it's fucking over for Henry Hill.
I think at that moment, all Paulie is saying right there is, I'm giving you a head start. That is, it's $3,200 and a head start. I turn my back on you. I will let Jimmy take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
I will not be the one to pull the trigger. And Jimmy's like, at this point, that's who Henry's really afraid of is Jimmy. Not even Paulie. Because he's like, might be able to smooth it over with Paulie, right? But Jimmy is just going to kill him. Jimmy's paranoid.
Well, he might be able to just have Paulie turn a blind eye to him. He's not going to smooth dick over with Paulie. But he might get a blind eye from Paulie. But Jimmy, though, Jimmy's a paranoid motherfucker. He's going to kill him the first chance he gets. When Karen shows up to meet with Jimmy, and she gets a little bit of money from him, and he says, oh, yeah, I also have some coats. You want a coat? You know, it's just in that building down the way.
So just right around the corner. Just walk in.
And you're like, she realizes that she's about to get whacked if she walks in that building.
Okay, this is a thing, because that sequence has been analyzed a bunch of times, and a lot of people are like, I don't think Jimmy was going to do it. I don't think he was going to kill Karen. And other people are like, she was so fucking dead.
Shit out of her.
Right?
She was beyond dead.
I'm in the camp of like, because people are like, well, Karen's not really involved. Like, Karen is just like...
I don't know that. And they also talk a lot in the movie about how people talk too much to their wives, like Maury.
Yeah.
Maury talks too much to his wife, so they gotta take care of her.
And that's like the thing. I'm always in the camp that if Karen walked into that building, dead. 100%. It's over.
It would be over.
And that kind of is what prompts Henry to, like, go to the FBI.
To go to the FBI to turn rat is... You know, he's got to save himself, his family.
Yeah. And oh my god. So that sequence is great where they're talking to the FBI agent.
Yes.
Because that agent is the actual agent that put Henry Hill into witness protection in, like, real life.
It's so good.
Yeah. And he's going through the whole conversation with them and all this other stuff, and it's like, Henry is like, I just don't want to fucking die. Can we do this? And Karen's like, well, what about my family? You know, what about my parents? Can I go back and see them?
Parents?
Well, you can just take Henry. I don't have to go. And he has to keep explaining to her, it's like, no.
They will come after you.
They will just kill you.
They will come after you so that they can get to Henry.
And then that's kind of where the movie comes to its head. Henry turns state's evidence, points out Jimmy and Paulie in court. Tommy, he would have pointed him out, but Tommy is dead.
Been dead for a while.
Been dead for a while. Been whacked. And they send them all up to, you know, Sing Sing, and Henry becomes a schnook, just a normal guy.
Yep.
So there you go, everybody. That is generally the story of what's going on.
That's generally the beat by beat of Goodfellas. Now let's talk about some of the themes of the movie,
which you love talking about.
Yes. So,
and this is a Scorsese movie, and there are themes.
Yes. The morality of the gangsters.
The morality.
Yeah, the morality of being a gangster, you know, of like doing these things to other people that you wouldn't want done to yourself, and, you know, getting this money out of it.
How do they justify doing these acts?
How do they justify it, you know? It's mostly about, like, they're only doing it to people outside the family, you know? Mm-hmm. But then Joe Pesci's character doesn't really care. He only cares about, like, not hurting himself and, like, his two closest guys.
And even then, I don't think he's that close to Henry or Jimmy. I think if provoked, he probably would kill Henry.
But the thing is, though, is that Henry and Jimmy, they know not to fuck with him.
Yeah. I think after seeing him beat a man to death with his bare hands once, kind of smoothed that over.
Well, also, they were there when he shot Spider.
Yeah.
Both times.
Right. Also, poor Spider.
Spider did nothing wrong.
I know. Also, he's that actor shows up in The Sopranos. He's one of, like, the main characters, and I should prefix that I want to say about 80% of the actors in Goodfellas show up in The Sopranos in either minor or major roles. Yeah.
I mean, hey.
Yeah. Goodfellas is kind of credited with revitalizing and bringing back the gangster genre. But that's a whole other discussion. But the themes of the movie. Yeah, so these guys, I'd imagine they probably justified it to themselves like a lot of people do. I have to pay a mortgage and this is what I do for work.
Well, they didn't pay taxes or nothing, though.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You know, they're not paying taxes, all their stuff is bogus, whatever, but it's the thing.
They still buy all these things.
Yeah, they still buy all these things. They still work. Quote unquote work.
Yeah, they work for a living, just, you know, not like you or me.
Yeah, I mean, to draw parallels to the other Martin Scorsese gangster flicks, like The Irishman. Or Casino, or even Mean Streets. And it's all these different aspects of, like, these gangster lifestyles. With Mean Streets, it's the guys who get into the gangster lifestyle really early, and they kind of burn out really quick. Goodfellas, they get into it, they make a little bit of money, but they eventually go how all these gangster guys end up.
Way too big for their britches, they spiral out.
Yeah, they either get caught, or they either get killed. These guys don't live to be, like, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Whereas The Irishman this is what it looks like for a career gangster who becomes a gangster in like his mid-20s and then just does that until he's like in his 70s or 80s. And it's a really sad, kind of depressing depiction where he's basically just a middle-class workaday guy who just kills people for a living. That's like The Irishman.
Yeah.
And it's this really sad deconstruction of the life is never glamorous for the guys who make it to old age.
Also, another thing in the life is there's no retirement plan unless you're a boss.
Yeah, there's none.
So like Jimmy and Henry, since they can't be made since they're, not 100% Italian, that's it for them. They have to be in this life until that's it, until it's over. Because it's not like, instead of buying 20 fucking coats like Ray Liotta's character did, he could have bought stocks. He
could have tried to turn legit.
He could have, maybe got himself a little business or something on the side.
Well, he owned those restaurants, but those restaurants were all fronts.
They were all fronts.
And I think that's the thing about this, like, gangster lifestyle that's really depicted in this film, is this life does not have a long-term viability.
No.
I mean, what is it? These guys, Henry Hill, he is 30 when he gets popped he's 32 in 1980 when he gets arrested and goes into witness protection. And we only see him for the course of like his when he's an adult performing crimes and all this other stuff. He's only really in it for like 16 years, 18 years, something like that, maybe 20.
In the movie or whatever, it's probably like differently framed than in like real life, but he's like in his late 30s when he gets popped in the movie.
Yeah, well in real life he's 32. It's really awkward because that's another thing, because the actors portraying them are a little older than they're supposed to be in real life, and also Robert De Niro's the only one making an effort to age himself throughout the years.
Ray Liotta kind of ages.
But
it's more like he just gets more coked up and it makes him look older.
Yeah, basically. I mean, Joe Pesci is playing 26 at like 46, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is the whole other thing.
But once we get to the meat of the movie where we're supposed to follow these characters, what are you really gonna do? You can't like. It was 1990 basically when this movie came out.
Yeah, it is 1990.
So what are you gonna use to de-age them? You're gonna CGI the de-aging? It's not like that shit exists yet.
Right. You would get like some water world effects if you were trying and CGI their like faces younger.
Oh God.
It's dark. We'd be the dark times.
It would look bad. So I don't really see it as like a valid critique.
It's one of those things where it's like, I can see why you would have issue, but it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Like, Ray Liotta looks like he could play anybody from like 25 to 35 in that range in this movie, and it would look legit.
Yeah. And honestly, that's the other thing. Ray Liotta is the main actor in this, right? And he's really fucking good in this.
Yeah.
You know where Martin Scorsese found him?
Where?
In like a romantic comedy he saw on TV.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Ray Liotta has a very like interesting career before this, because like I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that much about Ray Liotta's filmography as a thespian, but he does Goodfellas in 1990, and the stuff he's doing before that is like a bunch of TV shit, and he's in like Field of Dreams in like a bit part, but he already finished Goodfellas by the time that came out. Before that, he's in like Something Wild, I think was the film that Scorsese saw him in. And it's like this weird romantic comedy film, and that's where he found him.
Oh God, is that him? That looks so weird.
No, it's not him.
Okay, I was about to say.
Sorry, I brought up a picture of the movie, and Randy thought Jeff Daniels was Ray Liotta for a minute.
I was like, "There's no way."
It is not. No, he plays like his friend or something.
Sure.
But yeah, so Ray Liotta's that's an interesting thing. Could you imagine you're a supporting actor in like some not really well regarded romantic comedy from like the 80s, and Scorsese sees you on like late night TV and he's like, I'm gonna make him a star.
Make him a star. And then you're the main character in Goodfellas, like one of the top like 5 at the very least, even if you're being really scrutinizing of the film, top 5 gangster movies all time, easily. And you're the face of the whole movie. You're the main character throughout the whole movie, and you do a great job.
You're doing a great job opposite of De Niro and Pesci.
And Pesci, even though he dies at some point in the movie, still wins Best Supporting Actor over Robert De Niro.
Do you think that's valid?
I mean, Joe Pesci is really fucking good in the movie. His character is like way like his character is like way more active than most of the characters in this movie.
He also steals every scene he's in.
He really does.
It's so good.
I mean, even though he dies at some point, his character just steals the show whenever he's on screen. I mean, the very famous scene of what's so fucking funny about me? Am I a clown to you? Do I amuse you? Like you're just a funny guy. Amazing scene. It's so fucking good. It so gives off the vibe of, even though Joe Pesci's character Tommy is supposed to be like all these guys' friends, he's supposed to be
it's a very jovial atmosphere. They're just joking, breaking balls.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be Ray Liotta's characters, like, one of his best friends. They grew up together, they became mobsters together. And then Henry Hill's just sitting there being like, holy fuck, is he gonna shoot me? Is fucking Joe Pesci's character Tommy?
It just drops to that ultimate tension moment.
Yeah, where he's just like, well, I don't know. You just... And then he's finally realized that he's fucking with him. He's like, get the fuck out of here.
You're gonna break under questioning. I love that scene. You know the best part about that? Joe Pesci directed that scene. Martin Scorsese was like, you know what, Joe? This is your big moment. I want you to direct the scene and sequence how you think it's gonna be, because you know this character so well. And I'm like, Joe Pesci directed that scene. It's one of the best scenes in Goodfellas.
Well, it's amazing. It's so fucking good. It's one of those things where, like, if I wanted this, like, if somebody was, like, not convinced to see Goodfellas, I'd be like, watch this scene. Watch the scene. It's so good. It's one of the best scenes in the movie. And it's, like, very short. It's, like, short, sweet, to the point.
And you
like,
get the
wow,
entire...
so good.
You also get the entire concept of the film, where it's like, oh, these guys, they're having this fun time, they're having this good time, and then it's like, oh, this is, like... I'm having
real
fun
shit
with fucking serial killers.
Yeah.
I'm like having beers and drinks with
Tommy
murderers.
might as well have been a fucking serial killer.
Yeah. What is it? And also props to Martin Scorsese having enough faith in his actors and enough like faith in a friend to be like, you know what? I know I'm the director, but you know this character so well in this moment. Just go for it. Tell me what to do. That's great directing right there.
Martin Scorsese's got balls.
But yeah.
What a lad. What a guy.
Martin Scorsese is a great director. It's arguably he might be the greatest living director at this point. I mean, based purely on his catalog.
Werner Herzog still alive?
Very much, yes. Still making movies. Him and Martin Scorsese still making movies. Tit for tat. But that's like the thing, Martin Scorsese, based purely on track record and resume, I don't think he's ever made a bad movie. I mean, like, Boxcar Bertha, the stuff he made when he was, like, working for Roger Corman, ain't that good. But then it's like, Mean Streets Up there's the bangers, like, all over the place.
Well, I mean, if you look at something more recently, like Silence, it's not everybody's cup of tea.
No.
And I don't think it really got that much critical acclaim.
Oh, people really dug it. It was nominated, I think, for Best Cinematography, and that was the only thing it got, which, how? But yeah, I mean, he also did Wolf of Wall Street, which is the
Wolf of Wall Street, big,
huge
everybody
movie.
loved that movie.
Yeah, and then...
So good.
He came out with The Irishman, which a lot of people had, like, issue with.
Yeah, that one was very split on.
Because it was like a 4-hour gangster epic, but it was a very, like, slow, kind of, like... Somber drama. And people were like, where's the Goodfellas guy? And he's like, bruh, I'm, like, in my 70s. Alright? Coke was a long time ago. Oh, great. He's coming out with a new movie soon, and... Really? Yeah, of course. Martin Scorsese. The man will not stop making movies till he's dead. What it is? The movie he's going to be directing next is Killers of the Flower Moon. And why you should be excited about this? Because it's going to star Leonardo DiCaprio, your boy Brendan Fraser, Robert De Niro. Brendan Fraser coming back.
He's making a comeback.
Been here for years. And yeah, and also Leo's coming back, Robert De Niro's coming back. I don't think Leo's worked with Scorsese since Shutter Island. I believe.
Well, wasn't Wolf of Wall Street after that?
Oh yeah, you're right. Wolf of Wall Street in like 2016, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute. So I'm just excited. Also, this is gonna be the first time. Oh no! Goddamn it, The Irishman. Shit, I was gonna say this is the first time him and De Niro have worked since Casino, but no, that was The Irishman. That was The Irishman.
He keeps these people around. Like, come on now.
Well, that's the crazy thing, because Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, all these guys are basically just normal, everyday friends. Like, he just called Joe Pesci and got him out of retirement to be in The Irishman. And in this movie, he just called up Robert De Niro. Was like, oh, we got to go through your agent. We got to go through your thing. He's like, hey, Bob, can you come over? My mom's having dinner. I want to show you a couple scripts. That's literally how that meeting for Goodfellas happened.
That's something we haven't mentioned, right? Like, Martin Scorsese's mom is in this movie, right?
So is his dad.
His dad's in this movie, too?
His dad's the one that kills Tommy. Or he's with the guy that kills Tommy. in the room.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's funny. Actually, I didn't know that. But yeah.
I believe Scorsese's parents make a cameo in almost every film he's made. Almost all of them until they passed, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah. And also, when they were making this movie, they needed to do all the suits and everything. He could only have his mom and dad, like, iron the collars, because they were the only ones who knew how to do it right.
They could do it right.
I would think
they
they
knew
were,
how to do it back from the neighborhood.
well, they were, like, tailors and shit back in, like, the 40s, 50s, and all that shit. Like, back in the day.
I mean,
They
that makes sense.
They probably actually ironed the collars of people who did these crimes.
No, they literally ironed the collars of Henry Hill's suits.
Maybe.
In my head canon.
In your head canon.
No, my head canon. That's how Martin Scorsese met Joe Pesci. He had to iron his suits when he was a good fella.
Right. But yeah, Goodfellas, such a good fucking movie. Such a good fucking movie.
So good.
Any other big theme stuff or any other movie parts you want to jump into before we get the AFI spots?
So there's like the morality of the characters as gangsters, how they like their greed, and how, you know, if they just lived within their limits, they wouldn't have done it, or like wouldn't have ended up the way they did. You know, the loyalty to the family that they don't adhere to.
Yeah.
You know, their downfall was not sticking to the plan.
Yeah, and that's the thing that Henry says at the beginning when he's talking to Karen, when she's like, well, Jeannie's husband went to prison. He's away for like 10 years. And Henry's like, you only get caught if you're dumb.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what you're doing, you don't slack off. If you stick to the plan, you never go to prison. These guys
goes to prison.
Goes to prison.
Twice.
Yeah. Probably
3 times.
Probably more in real life, but whatever. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know.
Well, I actually probably won't get to that.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, we actually won't get to that. Henry Hill, I have no idea his arrest record, but it's pretty extensive.
Read off his arrest record on here.
Yeah. It was extensive to say the least.
You know, if they just stick with Paulie and his normal everyday mobster jobs, would have ended up like this.
Yeah, but then you would have lived
if
like
Tommy didn't shoot every fucking third person he met.
Fucking right.
God damn it, Tommy.
But that's the thing, you know, if you live how Paulie, operates, you're basically just an upper class, guy.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go the way that Jimmy
middle class, kind of set.
Yeah. It kind of set, but you can never stop working. Mm-hmm. What if you go with like Henry and
boss,
Jimmy?
So all he had to do was tell people what to do.
Yeah. But if you do what Jimmy and Henry want to do, then hey, you set for life. You're doing rails of coke off of gold chains.
God.
I just like pointing out that there's so much coke in this movie.
Well,
there's suitcases of it.
Yeah, and they flush it down the toilet. He freaks the fuck out. They just flush down the toilet.
How much coke did she flush down the toilet? Like 60 grand? That's 60 grand is a fucking...
60 grand of coke.
That's 60 grand in 70s coke money. That was real coke. But yeah, so... on any other big parts we gotta really dig into here.
Another amazing scene is after Henry Hill and Karen get married, right?
Yeah.
And Karen's sitting up at her mother's house, sitting awake because Henry hasn't come home all day.
Oh,
that scene is so good. He finally arrives at the house. It's like early in the morning.
It's like 5 a.m.
The sun, everything's in that blue light of like just before the sun comes up. And he drives up into the driveway, walks up to the front door, and Karen and her mom open the front door and they both start yelling at him, "Where have you been? We were so worried about you."
Henry just laughs and walks away.
Just fucking leaves. It's so good. It's so fucking good.
That's another thing. This movie is super funny.
It is
in a lot of parts. It's borderlines a comedy. Like that sequence, it's so funny. I mean, that tension thing. It's like, how the fuck am I funny to you? That whole tension buildup, and then the release of it's like, he'll break under questioning. That feels like a conversation you would.
Good.
That feels like a conversation you would have with the fucking boys and shit. You having drinks or whatever, playing a card game. That's like,
also, there's some juxtapositional, pretty funny moments where they're having dinner with Joe Pesci's mom, and the guy's stuck in the trunk,
and he's like banging on it, and he's like dying. He's like, please help me.
And they're just like having a nice dinner with Tommy's mom and everything. And it's funny,
Yeah. Oh my god. He's like, when are you gonna meet a nice girl? He's like, I got a nice girl. I meet one every night.
Yeah. You want to go settle down? I settle down every night. I'm up the next morning.
There's so much like funny bits in this movie. There's a lot of drama going on, and it's exhilarating because it goes by so fast.
Yeah, they're kind of like hitting all these beats really quickly and kind of moving along, And another good one is when they burn down the bamboo cabana, and they're having this conversation outside where Joe Pesci's trying to convince
Ray
Liotta to go on this double date with him, and he's like, I don't know, I don't want him, blah blah.
Like, I have this thing with Tully. I can't do
really
this.
Make it. And then the place finally is like burning down behind them, and he's like, oh shit.
He's like, fucking Tommy, this is what happens when you distract me. I missed the fucking thing, and the car's fucking stalling out. God fucking damn it.
And they like drive off. It's so good. There's so many funny scenes in the movie, which are really good juxtaposed to like the really violent scenes in the movie, like the pistol whipping scene.
Super violent.
I mean,
I know I sold that to you as like, bro, it's the greatest pistol whipping scene in cinema history. But I mean it's good. It's a solid pistol whipping scene.
Solid pistol whipping scene, you know. I mean, it's just it's one of those scenes that kind of like gets you behind Ray Liotta's character, even though he's like a bad guy. But it's such a righteous thing to do. Like, it's something that you were like, man, I wish I could fucking do that, you know?
It's like some guy late.
He put his hands on my fucking girlfriend. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna fucking pistol whip him, you know?
Put his hands on my girlfriend, throws her out of a fucking car. It is one of those things, and I think that's the whole thing about gangster movies. It's like we all know in reality 99.9% of the population who watches these films are like, man, these guys are fucking scumbags, but it'd be kind of nice to live a day like that, living that large,
to live that life to where, you know, you walk in the back door of the restaurants, you know, you get the table, even if the table's not fucking there, they set up the fucking table right there for you.
that sequence is so good, and it's all done in one take.
Yeah,
which is
where
crazy.
They follow him from the car across the street, down the stairs, into the back room,
into the kitchen, out into the main floor. They set up the table there. They bring him the wine, and then they start doing the jokes. And Scorsese points that out is because we're supposed to be Karen in that situation. Because Henry is showing Karen, this is the life you can have if you stick with me. It's the seduction sequence.
Yes.
And us as the audience, we're kind of seduced by this life. It's like, you can do that. You can just walk in and
you walks past this,
do whatever you want.
He gets his car parked for him. He walks in through the huge line. He goes through the kitchen. You can see all the inner workings of the kitchen, all the nice things about it.
He's talking to everybody. He's friendly with everybody.
He's friendly with everybody. He walks he hands the doorman $20, and she's like, "You handed the doorman $20?" He's like, "Don't worry about it."
Yeah, I know the guy. It's fine.
I know the guy. It's fine. And, you know, he gets out on the floor. The manager there is like, Henry, how's it going? You know, get the table ready for Henry. You know,
they bring out a brand new table with the cloth and lays the whole thing out for him. It's one of those things where it's like, look,
that would be nice.
I understand people are like, I would never. I would rise above such temptation. But let's be honest. Like, if you could walk into like a nice restaurant and you could just go wherever you want, people just bring you shit, they set the place up for you. I'm trying to think of like, what's the fanciest restaurant I can think of? Like Del Rey. You go to the Del Rey Steakhouse, and they just like, walking through the back, out past the line, there's like a 4-day waiting list, and you just like walk in on a Tuesday, they just set that shit up for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
And that's a great part of that scene.
Run it up on my tab.
Yeah, just run it up on my tab.
Just run it up on my tab.
Tommy, you got $7,000 on your tab.
7 fucking big ones here.
Yeah, you got 7 big ones here. You get a fucking thing. And he kicks his ass and it makes him go away, and he goes back to having fun and drinking. That's the thing. It's like that temptation, and it's like that intrigue, and it's like, man, living that life for like a little bit is so sweet, but that's the problem. It's also, you can have too much of a good thing, and that's the problem with this life. It's the greed. You can't just have a little bit, and that's the whole point of the movie. And that's why I love that sequence where they go into the Copacabana, because that seduction of this lifestyle.
Yeah, she gets kind of like whirlwinded into the lifestyle through that scene, and she can't leave it after that. That's it. She's hooked.
And us as the audience, it's the same way.
Yeah.
You know the best part about that? Scorsese didn't want to shoot it like that. That was because they wouldn't let him use the front of the building.
Oh my god, you've got to... Really?
Yeah, they wouldn't let him use the front of the building to, like, go in with the camera and all the setup. No, this is like a real restaurant. Well, let's use the side entrance or whatever, because he was going to shoot it, like, conventionally.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're going to cut in, we're going to go in, we're going to do this, medium, wide, whatever. And they were like, you know what, I have an idea. And Scorsese's like, we do the oneer through the building. I think it took him, like, a couple hours to set it up and, like, figure it out. I think it took him, like, 5 or 6 takes to do it. And that's after, like, all rehearsals. And they nail it. And I'm like, it's one of the best oneers in movies. It's so good. Again, Scorsese, lad. Keen though. Any other points you want to talk about the movie or Scorsese?
I don't know. What's your favorite scene?
My favorite scene?
Yeah.
I like I said that. Yeah. What's your favorite scene?
What's your favorite scene? Let's get it out there.
Honestly, that oneer is so good.
Oneer?
Well, it's because in that sequence, I'm just in the movie, and I feel like I know we're supposed to be seeing it through the eyes of like Karen in that scene, and yeah, I can't help but see it through her eyes. I'm like, that's seduction, that temptation, that is like, this is the life you can have if you just give in a little bit. And I'm like, oh god, after that, I'm in. The movie, I am completely bought in. This movie can do whatever it wants.
I might have some recency bias for my favorite. Or no, you can go ahead. Actually, you can go ahead if you have something else to say.
No. I basically got everything out. It's just because I explained it in a few minutes. But that sequence is just so good because everything else they can do as many horrible things as you want. You're bought into the lifestyle.
You understand.
Yeah. So after you.
But I think I might have some recency bias since it is a scene that happens like near the very end of the movie. But the courtroom scene.
Oh,
where he has like this real shamefulness about him where he has to point out, yeah, that's Jimmy. Yeah, that's Paulie. But then also he where he gets up from the witness booth and he goes and straight and talks to the camera about how how the life is, how the life was, and how it's all over now. I really like it because it wraps up everything very nicely. And it just had the look on Ray Liotta when he delivers it is so good. Like all the emotion that's going through that scene, all the little intercuts they do of the different characters talking to each other. It's just so well done.
Yeah, and with that sequence, it's now we kind of get the voiceover. It's it's his testimony.
Yeah,
he's explaining. He's explaining to the audience, the court or whatever. It's this is the life. This is what we did. This is what I felt. This is why I wanted to do it. And now it's gone.
Also,
dust in the wind.
The prosecutor calling him a rat is so good too.
Because everybody in the audience is he ratted him out.
He's a rat.
Ratted him out.
And he's like, I'm not a rat.
I would never ratted anybody out in my life. But watch me as I rat all my friends out so I don't go to prison.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many good scenes in this.
Yeah. Think we should wrap it up about now?
Just about. I mean, we're about an hour into this recording.
Yep.
Getting close. So yeah, AFI spot here. Because this film was 94 on the 1998 list. And it creeped up to 92 on the 07 list. So it moved up, 6 spots.
A little bit.
Little bit.
Or 2 spots, not 6.
Or I can't read. Sorry. But in the other list, it's been featured in 2012 on the Sight and Sound, 2015 on BBC America. It was way higher than the 90s here. Yeah. So, do you think it should go up, or do you think it's probably where it's supposed to be? Do you think it's ever gonna come off the list, or where it's going?
Okay, out of the movies I've seen so far, this is 93 on the list, right under Ben-Hur.
Oh, okay.
It's the way it goes. But in all seriousness, it's really good, and I could definitely see it moving up later on the list. In updates to it, I could definitely see it moving up. It's really good.
I think out of all the movies we've watched so far, it's probably held up much better than a lot of the other movies we've seen.
Yeah, I would just watch this movie for pure entertainment value, just to watch it. And I wouldn't do that really with many of the other movies on this list.
Actually, you did that with Blade Runner not too long ago.
I did do that with Blade Runner. I watched it with my girlfriend, it was pretty good. Although she didn't particularly like it, but she's also really squeamish with blood.
And there's that one scene with the eyes.
Well, also mostly it was with when Roy Batty puts the nail through his hand.
The Christ imagery, right?
Yeah, and she was just like, meh, not a big fan. And I was like, she doesn't understand.
It's so good.
I was like, but they're tears in the rain. The dove, it's so good. She's like, meh.
So about Randy's ex-girlfriend.
No.
But yeah, so, I mean, I think this is probably one of the most rewatchable out of all the movies we've seen so far. Well, I mean, Do the Right Thing is very rewatchable, but it's rewatchable in a very, technical, clinical sense.
Yeah. I would say this is just rewatchable. It's just a movie, just a film.
Pure entertainment.
You could just watch it, and it'll be good. It'll be great.
And I think you can also watch this and just study it, because it really distills down, crazy editing techniques. It a lot of French New Wave filmmaking techniques. I think I said that way earlier on. But yeah, Martin Scorsese really took a lot of inspiration from French New Wave cinema and all that stuff and really incorporated that into filmmaking here. And you can study this and pick up a lot of great filmmaking techniques. If you notice, there's a lot of like continuity flubs in the movie.
Really?
There's
there's a couple, yeah, where mostly it's like cigars.
Yeah, cigars on the wrong hand. Maury's phone is never at his ear in different shots. It's either not in frame at all or it's at his ear. And there's a bunch of stuff like that, but it goes to the point of if the story is good and the performances are good, you never notice. And that's kind of the
only
whole
things
thing.
I really noticed was like Paulie's cigar. You know, how he would be smoking it and then it would cut and he wouldn't be smoking it and then cut and he's smoking it again.
It's interesting. But yeah, so you're definitely on the camp that this goes up the list if we ever get an update.
I thought about it a little bit. The thing is that Godfather, a gangster movie, is number 2 on the list.
Yeah, it's way the fuck up there.
And it's like, you know, do we have room for this many gangster movies on the list? You know?
I mean, off the top of my head, because there's a few. Because we have Goodfellas, we have. I mean, technically, you can count. Would you count Pulp Fiction as a gangster movie or just like a crime film?
It's just a crime film.
Yeah. Okay. So just pure gangster movies. It's Goodfellas, Godfather Part 2. I think I guess that's the only ones off the top of my head. I'd have to go through the rest of the list.
Public Enemy's not on here?
No, Public Enemy's not on here. I'd have to go through the rest of the list to really figure out if there's more. But those are the 3 that pop off my head. I'm like, I don't know if we really need. I feel like this one can't come off though. In terms of like recency,
and
it's
here's
so
another
influential.
thing is that you could be like, well, we have Godfather. Do we really need Godfather Part 2 on there? I'm like, but I kind of like Godfather Part 2 more.
You fucker. Well, Godfather Part 2 is also so good. And The Godfather
really
is
good.
Amazing.
Godfather Part 2 is like the only sequel that might have been better than the freaking original.
We're going to get to it eventually. Later on down the line. But yeah, like that's the thing. Goodfellas, in my opinion, if they do an update to this, will not come off the list. I don't think it'll
come off.
I don't think it'll come off the list unless we get many decades down the line and its influence stops being felt, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Or here's the thing, maybe they swap it with a different Scorsese movie, Wolf of Wall Street.
Silence?
I don't really see Silence because Silence
The
doesn't
Departed,
have, like,
the one he actually won best director for.
True.
Yeah. I mean, you're a big fan of Casino.
Yeah, but I mean, between Casino and Goodfellas, I mean...
Yeah. I mean,
even though I really like Casino, Goodfellas is probably better.
My money is that King of Comedy should be on this list. I would love King of Comedy to be on this list. It is so good. It's like one of my favorite Scorsese films, and it is like amazing. I think King of Comedy should be on here if they were going to put another Scorsese on here. And they were going to have to like switch something off. I mean, it's interesting we're talking about like switching Goodfellas off for something else. Because, you know, it's Goodfellas.
Hey, Spielberg's got, what, like 5 movies on the list?
He's got like the most.
I mean, you know, Scorsese's track record versus Spielberg's track record. I mean, hey.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. That's kind of where we sit now. Goodfellas should definitely stay on. Probably go up the list.
Probably go up. We'll probably find some other things on the list that it's like, yeah, no, this is definitely worse than Goodfellas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think in the bottom 10 we've gone through already, there's stuff that's worse than Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Strictly.
Whoa, do you want to say them, though?
Well,
I mean...
Actually, next episode, we're going to do Sophie's Choice, but right after that, we're going to do a little special episode. We're going to rank the 10 we've watched so far.
Oh.
Remember that.
Yes.
So we're going to actually figure out, you know, between the two of us, where we think these 10 movies we've watched so far should sit. And with that, I'm going to tell everybody the ones we've seen so far, so maybe they can go back and give a little, you know, listen, see what they should think.
See what they should think.
We're not thought control, man.
Propagandize anybody here.
All right, but you know,
we're just displaying our own thoughts. Whew.
Yeah. I know, right? Maybe, but yeah, go back, listen to the episode, maybe watch the movies, see what you think. You know, that's kind of the point of the podcast. We want more people to watch these movies. But yeah, so far we've watched Ben-Hur, Toy Story, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Blade Runner, Do the Right Thing, The Last Picture Show, Pulp Fiction, French Connection, and Goodfellas. The next episode is going to be Sophie's Choice. That came out in 1982. And that one is going to be interesting. It has a Meryl Streep performance in it. People really credit it for being a great Meryl Streep performance. I got her second Oscar. It's directed by Alan J. Pakula, who was the producer on To Kill a Mockingbird and the director of All the President's Men, who is also on the AFI 100.
I see.
Yeah, people really dig that movie. But we're going to be seeing that one next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, any last words? Oh,
you need the spiel first.
I got to do the spiel. If you wanted to actually listen to those, you should go to where you can find our podcast, which is Anchor FM, Google Podcast, Spotify, anywhere you can get your podcast. And our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can listen to the Film Odyssey podcast, as well as the Film Club podcast and the Double Feature podcast for the foreseeable future. And that is at In the Frame on YouTube. And any last words, Randy?
You know, we all kind of wish we could be some good fellas, but we're not all cut out for it.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a podcaster.
Oh, God.
I know.
My cringe.
All right, everybody. Have you all a good week.
Have a beautiful time.